I like making things out of wood, but I'm no luthier. Inspired by a visit to the Eel Pie Island Museum in Twickenham, where I saw some old 4-string guitars, my first concept was to build a small 4-string guitar using Clinker boat building construction for the soundbox. I couldn't find examples of this being done before, and there might be good reasons for that. I'd been storing some sawn yew wood planks for decades, and had some 3mm thick by 40mm wide strips made from the planks, which seemed bendy enough. These were laminated and clamped into the keel shape. After smoothing and shaping, the keel laminates were clamped and glued using 3 former patterns. Only the transom and prow patterns were left in place, ready for the planking. I tried steam bending the first planks, which I tied into the appropriate curve shape with a taut string to dry. But when I tried to bend and twist the planks to fit over the patterns, they split. So I binned the whole thing and started again. My second design required less bending and no twisting. It had larger bow end and the planks followed radial lines. Using computer-aided design software, I drew out the new design in precise detail, including strings and tuning heads. I amended it as I went along. From the drawing, I made 3 patterns, which I cut out from 10mm yew wood and mounted on a board, and then marked out each plank or strake using dimensions from the drawing and a fairing batten, and planed the strakes into shape. Each strake was glued to the transom and bow patterns, and the joint reinforced with a shaped fillet made from yew wood. I formed the lands where the strakes overlap using a cabinet scraper. When 5 strakes were on, I had to cut access holes in the baseboard so I could glue in the fillets at the joins. Strings and nails were used as a tourniquet to hold the strakes during gluing. When all strakes were in place, I trimmed off the ends. For the soundboard, I glued 5 pieces of 3mm plank together, about A4 size. The hull was cut off from the baseboard. The central pattern was not glued in, so was easily removed, leaving only the transom and bow ends. I laminated 3 pieces of 3x1 planed oak together, squared them up each side and cut the through body piece to an angle to suit the passage from neck to transom. For future use, I made a mitre block so that I could cut the fret slots easily. Not having a bandsaw, I used a pillar drill to perforate the neck profile, which I then gave its final shape with planes and rasps. I used an online calculator for the fret spacing for a 23-inch scale length and cut the slots using my purpose-made mitre block and my friend Nick's very fine tenon saw, and then I tapered the neck. Using different grades of sandpaper mounted on flat boards, I made the sound box edges dead flat. I used my friend Nick's sander thicknesser to reduce the soundboard to 2.7mm thick and cut a small sound hole using the Helmholtz formula, which worked out at 50mm or 2 inches diameter. And I added a single slightly radius brace made from 3mm yew wood. The head was made spear shaped, and I made the nut out of a scrap of ebony. The 10mm holes for the tuning pegs were drilled using a pillar drill. The first trial fitting of the tuning pegs followed. Then the soundboard was worked on, and I should explain that because I wanted the soundboard to be removable, it had to be screwed in place. Countersunk screws would not suit thin wood, so I used tiny slot head screws and washers which projected above the soundboard. Because strumming fingers would hit those screw heads, I made edge covers to recess the screw heads into using more 3mm yew wood. These look a bit like boat knees, which I quite like the look of. Using a drill and a fret saw, I cut the square hole for the through body neck and chiselled a square recess into the transom for the end to sit in. Thanks to Arthur for using his workshop and tools. Then followed a series of trial fittings of neck to body and adjustments. The through neck body was The through body neck was glued in place and held temporarily with bits of bent wood to push the neck against the body. The fiddly bits of saddle and bridge were cut and shaped from yew scraps and a few bits of scrap ebony. A rectangular hole for the piezo pickup was cut in the saddle and the soundboard. I had wanted a stainless steel tailpiece and had one made which wasn't very successful, so I made one out of a scrap of oak. It is not pretty, but it works. I used my friend Nick's plastic fret mallet, pincers and fret file to install the frets. The ends of the strings were finished with tied-on glass beads, and I fitted a Maisai pickup which I can remove by unscrewing the soundboard if I want. I haven't shown the final sanding and varnishing and stringing, and will jump straight to seeing how it sounds. This is the nearly completed instrument. I still have to put fret dots on. These are bits of masking tape to show me roughly where I am, and this is what it looks like. It's in open G tuning, so that's D, G, B, D, open G, and I think it resonates quite nicely. So overall I'm quite pleased with the appearance and the sound, and I hope you've enjoyed watching or found it of some use. Thank you and goodbye for now.